Recording in progress.
That was
All
a great disclaimer.
right. I was thinking about that and I was like,
I don't want to be held liable.
Good job, good job.
We're grateful for you. And you folks are all volunteers, like this is like, I mean, you're getting probably a
Oh.
job at that here at no cost.
yeah, this event is amazing.
HR and staff.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
This is for small business. I mean, yours will still be small.
Can we see if anybody's in the room? It looks like 4 people.
I think
Oh yeah. Well, I'm guessing the host is 1.
Yeah. So 3.
So we got sweet.
And we have
Did you mention you have a business outside?
I do.
What do you do?
I'm a notary on the side. So I do just like regular documents, and then most of my business and clients come from like loan signing. So if you're refinancing, buying, selling,
Yeah.
I get involved in all of those. But the funny part is 9 times out of 10, my clients are people who are on vacation while they're trying to close.
Love
So
it.
like they had a trip to Maui planned like in the random week of September, and they're
Yep.
like, oh, by the way, like we need to close your documents now.
Yeah.
So I have mainline companies calling, and they're like, can you please go to Wailea and hunt this person down at the Grand and
Yeah.
like get 167 pages? It's hilarious because they're like, oh, like I'm at the pool. Can you come down here? I'm like, can you get a towel first?
Right.
Like, I don't know if water and paper,
paper,
wind is gonna.
Right.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster unless you want your finances all over the beach. But yeah, those ones are fun.
Yeah.
But the local families that we get once in a while, those are like,
Okay.
those are the best ones because it's like they're buying a home for the first time or they're taking a HELOC or something. So very exciting.
Test.
Yeah. 1 minute countdown.
Just like letting everybody know we've got 1 minute.
Well, you guys are so much better than the others.
Well, I'm telling you, the sound system in the Pilina room is so difficult to hear. Oh my goodness. It's hard. Yeah, it really was never designed. This is the media center. It was designed for this
Oh.
kind of, Kaike all tech. Like when you think about what this the college brings to the table, college brings expertise. If we had to pay for this like at a hotel or map, it would cost us $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to bring so much, not just the,
Just the
All the AV. Yeah.
don't mind me as I represent. My daughter went to the University of Oregon, got a big game versus Penn State tomorrow. Yeah, let's go. You have to watch earrings. Well, I'm trying to be a little demure. Being demure.
I love it.
Very subtle. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Are hot. And this microphone's already on, so.
Did he just say I'm hot? I love it. Thanks, Daryl.
Testing.
My mic is hot. Let's be clear. Thank you. I want to say again, thank you so much to Maui College for all their tech support and help. It makes a huge, huge difference. I'm Stacey Moniz with the YWCA Maui Women's Business Center. So happy to have everybody here. Like we've said in other workshops, we started with the feedback from last boot camp that we did, and human resources was one of the top 6 questions that people had that they wanted more information on. So we're so grateful today to have our panelists here who are here representing their organizations and really want to make sure that we let everybody know that nothing they share today should be considered legal advice or tax advice. Everybody's business is very specific. So if you have specific questions that you'd like to ask them, please contact them offline. They are more than happy to share their business contact with you. I think it's all in the program as well. So I just want to make that clear. Like, we want to be appreciative that they're here today, sharing all this wisdom at no cost to all of us. Yeah, we get to learn a lot. So our first step is going to be to ask people, who are you? Like, who's in the audience? How many of you have a paid employee, one or more. No one likes to say one. Maybe you're a solo entrepreneur. What about used to 1 to 3, 3 or more, or do most of you are looking at maybe having an employee, or maybe you have seasonal needs? Okay, great. It's good to know. I know seasonal is also very important, and so we're going to try and focus on some of that too. So thank you all for participating. This is being recorded. If you wanted to opt out of any pictures and stuff, the waivers on your evaluation, let me know if you didn't want to be photographed. And then, okay, so we're gonna do kind of a round robin and maybe start right here with, we'll go ladies first, and ask Jennifer to introduce herself. And then, oh, sorry, the mic was down there. Should I start with Tyler?
Just leave it out.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
We're going to have Jennifer introduce herself, and then everybody can introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves and their business.
Aloha, I'm Jennifer from Aloha International Employment. We are a full-fledged employment agency here on the island of Maui, and we can service all islands. We do HR, payroll, and staffing.
Oh, that was quick. Okay.
Thanks, Jennifer. Aloha, everybody. Thanks for joining the HR session today. My name is Stephen Thomas. I work for ADP. We pay 1 in 4 workers in Hawaii. Actually, we're the largest payroll and HR company in the country. And my role at ADP is really to help. It sounds like a lot of you who are here in the room deciding on either, is it time for me to take that first paycheck? And if so, what do I need to do next in order to do that? Or is it time for me to hire my first employee? And if so, what do I need to do with everything after that? So over my 12 years at ADP, I've helped thousands of businesses take that leap. I did fly in this morning from our Honolulu home base, where my wife is a woman-owned business. So I live in your shoes in some ways, and we have a 3-year-old back at home as well.
Awesome.
Aloha, my name is Tyler. I'm born and raised here on the island of Maui in Lahaina. I work with ProService Hawaii, so similarly to ADP, we're also an HR service provider locally across the state. I've been in the HR recruiting space for over 10 years, and so I'm super excited to share my passion for all things hiring and HR, so thanks for all being here today. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing how many decades of experience we have just right here. I'm so grateful to you all. So we started with some questions in mind, starting with hiring and recruitment. And so maybe you can answer what you think the biggest challenges small businesses face when deciding to hire their first employee or even paying themselves as an employee. And what key signs indicate that it's the right time? Maybe start with Tyler and come back this way.
So in my experience, I think it's really a question of understanding where are you at right now in your business, and also what are your plans for the future. So scalability is important. I think there's a lot of different factors to take into consideration in terms of like, what are you looking for immediately versus long term, right? Like, are you looking to hire someone just for a busy season that happens once or twice a year? Or are you looking to open a second location where you're going to need more full-time support? And I think it's also important to recognize how much time can you yourself commit as your business begins to grow and scale, right? Because a lot of times as a solopreneur, myself included, like I can only do so much, right? And that's where eventually you start to decide that you're going to need that extra help, and just know what your limits are, and more importantly, when you're ready to make that decision.
Great.
So I think when it comes to hiring your first employee, coming up to the table, asking the question, the first thing that comes to a lot of people's mind is like the unknown unknowns, right? Like once I extend that offer, like what am I going to be responsible for next? So excited to have this session because I think we're going to debunk a lot of that, but recognizing first how much cash flow is on everyone's mind and all the unknown unknowns involved in that. I came up with 3 kind of bullet points for this one. First is, do you have the cash? So do you have the cash for 3 to 6 months of the full burden of that employee? We'll get into the details around how much an employee will cost and kind of all the things besides the salary that are associated with that. The second is, do you need an employee? Are you getting bogged down with so many admin tasks and other things that you're turning down business, you're turning down revenue at the front door? And the third is, do you know what that employee is going to do? So looking at a job description, looking at what you're spending your time doing, and by bringing somebody on, are you going to be elevating the highest and best use of your time by bringing somebody on to help support? Oh, and then for any of you that are thinking of putting yourself on payroll, it's just the simple equation of looking at the amount of tax savings that you're going to get from that. And whenever that surpasses the cost of putting yourself on payroll, then it's probably time to put yourself on payroll.
Can I ask a question about, do you help with things like job description creation? All of you?
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
To piggyback on everything that they said, absolutely, you got to take in all of those aspects, especially when you're a new owner of a business. And I would say it's a scary, it's a scary step to have to bring in your first employee. I think Hawaii based, you're always want to find somebody maybe that you know, a family member. But in my experience, I want to say sometimes that gives a harder aspect to it because if you hire a family member, then they tend to take advantage sometimes. I mean, depending on how close you are with them or whatnot. Um, I can use example. I just had to have a meeting with one of my clients because her brother was hired and her brother was using their mobile vehicle to go do his own mechanic work. And, so those type of things happen when you bring on a family member. So, but then sometimes it's scary to hire somebody you don't know. So,
Oh.
you're gonna take a risk no matter what, whether it's a family member or a stranger. But just know, go with your gut feeling. I like to say, your gut feeling is always gonna be the best way to move forward. But keeping in mind your finances on what you can afford. A lot of companies come to me and I give them a quote and they're like, I didn't know I have to pay for all of these other things. They're taking the gross wages. I'm just gonna pay this employee $20 an hour. But you've got to take into consideration all of the payroll taxes and all of the things that come with having an employee. So these are all things that new companies, and it's not just any company, it's most companies. That's why it's important to have, these avenues and come to these talks so that because don't ever think that when you're owning a company or starting a company and you didn't know something that it doesn't reflect you or your business. You're going into business on something that you are passionate about. I think all of us right here are passionate about HR and staffing, which a lot of people come to me and they're like, I envy you, they don't want to do those things. They don't want to take those hard steps, but that's why you have companies like us that are here to help you guys out.
And that's part of why we wanted to do this workshop too, so you could meet the people who do this kind of work and, ask them questions after or, when we're back in the main session, so that you can start to build relationship with folks to, find somebody that suits your style and your business and all of that. Super important. Yeah, please.
Just to piggyback off of what she was sharing, especially when it comes to deciding to hire family and friends, it's super easy because they're available. Most of the times, they want to help you out too, right? And the best advice I like to give is you have to understand, as long as you are super clear on boundaries, that makes it much more easier. But at the same time, ask yourself, think about the most difficult conversation you could have with this person as a family member or as your best friend. Now, can you also do that if you had to terminate them in the same aspect, right? So those are different ways to help you decide in terms of, is that the easiest and the fastest way for me to get the support that I need versus looking at other options or hiring from the outside and having to build that trust. But again, of course, folks like us and what we do, having things super clear, like job descriptions, contracts, all of that just helps you set up a little bit more success. But just a piece of advice to think about when you're struggling to make that decision.
Yeah. Any other? Okay, let's move on. Maybe we'll start with Stephen this time. We're talking about cost and value. Entrepreneurs often underestimate the full cost and burden of hiring and training their first employee beyond just the salary. What hidden expenses or additional costs should they budget for, and how can they calculate a realistic total?
Okay, so the actual cost. So for those of you I see with a pen in your hand, this one's going to be fun. So first, I'm going to give you a general number because really the answer is it depends. It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what your unemployment history is. So there's a number of factors here. A general rule of thumb, I would say, take the wage, the $20 an hour, whatever you're compensating the employee. You multiply that times 1.2 to 1.4. So on a $20 hour an employee, you're getting $24 to $28. And then if they're working more than 20 hours a week for 4 weeks in a row, you're also going to be responsible for most of their health insurance. So if you take another $500 to $1,000 a month, if you do that back of the napkin math, and you're in the ballpark, call us all. Yep. So 1.2 to 1.4 is what I'm going to say, ballpark. And then I'll go into the actual line items, but 1.2 to 1.4.
Yeah.
So that's a multiplier.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you're paying someone $20 an hour.
Yeah.
$20 an hour is stuff.
Sorry, I didn't know it was $1.4.
Yeah.
Whatever
So,
your hourly rate is. So,
so
like if
20
it's
to 40% more, depending. And then health insurance on top of that, that's going to be a flat amount, right? But $500 to $1,000 is a good estimate. If you do that math, that feels like comfortable. Then we can really hone in on the numbers, on the amounts. I'll break down some of the amounts. So the first one is the employer taxes. So you're going to be responsible for the FICA tax. You match the FICA tax. So you're responsible for 7.65% for the FICA tax. And then there's unemployment, there's federal, and there's state unemployment. So that'll be around 3 to 4% depending on the year. And that can fluctuate by business, but again, 3 to 4%. You're going to be responsible for temporary disability insurance and workers' compensation insurance. Temporary disability, think about 0.5%. For workers' compensation, think of it like a risk meter. So if you have somebody in an office position, it's a very low risk of them getting hurt. You're probably in the realm of 1 to 2%. If you have somebody doing a manual labor type job, you're probably in the 5 to 10%. Again, these are conceptually, and then if you're doing that multiplication, you can get a free quote from an insurance agent to get what your actual numbers are going to be for like your workers' compensation, your health benefits. And then for payroll services, ours start out at around $45 to $70 per payroll, depending on whether you're running your payroll, once a week or once every 2 weeks.
$45 to $70 for the whole payroll processing or per person?
For the first employee. And then it goes up by a couple bucks for each additional. So that 5 to 10% manual labor would be for workers' compensation insurance if the employee gets hurt. So in the state of Hawaii, you're required to cover the employee if they get hurt on the job. So the workers' compensation policy depends completely. Everyone's going to have a very specific rate depending on what they do and how many employees and how much their payroll is. But it's going to depend on the risk of what the employee's doing. Added to the wages.
Yeah.
And then whatever payroll service we choose, then that is that all taken care of? Like, we take care of all the FICA taxes. and
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
Is that right? If we don't
That's
have
what you're
to-
paying for. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what you're paying, that's the service fee.
Yeah.
That is worth the
Yeah.
$40.
Right?
Right?
I'm telling you.
All right. I've spoken enough.
I'm so sorry. Excuse me for a moment. I just have to address.
Go ahead. You got more to add?
Um,
Oh, we were talking about the cost and the value. So I agree with, when you look at somebody's going to figure out all your taxes and your workman's comp, that's what you're paying for.
Yeah, so like he said, he did the best breakdown that you could, ask for. But that's another thing to take into consideration, because like I said, you don't take that into consideration a lot of times when you're starting a business and you're thinking about, you know, because you're thinking about what you're gonna do as your passion and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, having those things to consider and then having, you know, a service like what we offer, we take care of everything. Because if you guys don't, then all those things are gonna have to be paid separately. So then you as that business owner are gonna have to take into consideration, okay, so my, you know, state unemployment taxes due this date, my, you know, my payroll, I have to keep on this. And, you know, businesses like us, we take that and we package deal it for you, and then you just focus on your business. And I think that's a part of, I think it's really important, especially for a starter business, because that's what you guys are passionate about, you know? So, yeah, as far as all of those, it's not fun having to take in all of those extra expenses. But I always find that once you take care of all of those things, it comes to, it flows, your business, you know that your business is being run properly. I have, like, a lot of times clients come, here's another example I was sharing with him. I had a dental office come to me and they were utilizing a CPA. You know, they thought, I'm using a CPA. I'm covered. But they didn't have workers' comp insurance and TDI. So somebody had sent them to me and I would explain to them, like, no, this is, you have to have this for your employees, you know. And she kind of freaked out. I said, no, well, I don't think you'll get caught unless your employees,
How can the
you know,
CPA miss that?
It's
they're,
not their scope.
It's not,
CPA,
Yeah.
let me answer that. Every time one of my clients comes to me and says I do payroll, I say, no, talk to one of these guys. So the laws change too fast.
no, it's true.
And you want someone that's an expert in that field. Just like if it has to do with tax or accounting, they're gonna send you my way, right? It changes too often.
Why
Don't
is
ever
your
let your
payroll-
bookkeeper do your payroll, even though they'll tell you they'll do it, or don't let your CPA do it.
Unless your CPA is also an HR person, because it's true, the laws regarding HR and taxes and change so frequently that you really do need to be specifically trained. There's a whole group of people doing HR.
Taxes, so that would be part of it.
No,
It's a whole
but
different
again,
kind of.
it's one of those things, yeah, like I said, you guys are in business to do what you open your business for, you know. A CPA is not in business to do HR,
Mhm.
you know, but a lot of companies don't realize that, you know. They think, oh, a CPA, he's gonna take care of all of my accounting things, you know. Sometimes I get companies coming to our office and they're like, oh, you do our taxes. I'm like, no, here's Adam. He'll help you with that. He'll help you with your,
But you
know,
will do
keeping
the
your.
W-2 at the end of the year, payroll tax,
Yes,
like
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
That's a whole different, that's just one
Yeah, that's a
slice
part
of
of payroll.
tax.
And anything to do with having an employee, our companies take care of. Anything to do with your business side and those expenses and taxes, business side, you want an accountant, you know. And not just, it's not that the CPA is not doing their job, because the CPA may have told the client, you need to get a workers' comp and TDI policy, but because the knowledge they didn't have, they just didn't think the importance of it. Not that that CPA was bad at all.
Mhm.
and even if the CPA is doing a decent job, you guys are talking to the Department of Labor, like
Mhm.
monthly. Like these guys are in it. And
Yeah.
your accountant's just not gonna be in it. So please use that.
One thing I'll add,
So you guys are gonna be, we're gonna be paying your bills and the taxes, and then you're gonna give us the information to give to the CPA
No,
to
we pay the
file
taxes.
the business tax.
we actually would remit the taxes for
Yeah.
you. So
Payroll,
yeah,
payroll.
for payroll
Not your
taxes.
business tax.
Well, but the CPA is gonna be taking all that information and then creating
Yes.
the whole overall business.
Correct.
Yes.
It's a
They're
slight,
gonna be expensing everything for
Yeah.
you, yes.
But so you're giving those expenses to us to
Yep.
give to.
correct.
Yep,
But also
correct.
they're running reports in a way that's so easy for me to do the entry that if I'm charging you additional fee for payroll, you tell them you're gonna hire someone else. because Their reports are very clean and easy to enter into the account.
Specialties, yes.
Okay, Michelle has a question.
I was wondering, so I have a farm.
Mhm.
Is there some sort of law where under a certain amount of time for farmers, you can hire somebody as
Yep. So agriculture, and that's why you'd want to partner someone like us, because agriculture in itself is a whole beast. You guys have your own different labor laws. You guys have your own wage rules that are required. Specific industries as well all have their own very different nuances. Agriculture is one. If you hire any workers that may be on different types of visas or you're offshoring, that's another option to think about as well. And again, like Adam's point, like payroll changes so often and it is nuanced by different payroll rules and regulations, especially if anyone here, and it's becoming more common in today's world, where you may hire somebody who works in another state. Hawaii state taxes are be completely different from the state of California. And so are all the employment laws that go with that, right? And so to some of the things that my peers here were speaking of is one thing to keep in mind too are penalties. So if you are trying to do all of this yourself and make sure that your state unemployment tax is paid, your FICA is paid, your federal, your health insurance, your work comp, if you get one of those wrong or they're late, you can incur penalties and those things add up over time, right? So considering partnering with a partner like any one of the three of us up here, we help take that burden off of you because we'll take that off your hands. We can advise you with our expertise. And again, we work in partnership with your other vendors, whether you have a CPA or you have your insurance broker. Like our job is to make sure that you are able to get the time back, because let's be real, time is money. You're able to get that time back to focus on what it is that your passions are that made you want to start that business in the first place.
Question, and it will probably help everybody.
Sure.
I learned the hard way. Can you please tell the difference between an independent contractor or a
Oh, yes.
subcontractor and an employee? Because yeah,
Yeah.
we're not really going to do that.
That's a great
So
question. That is a
There,
great
this is where we'll do the disclaimer, like no legal
Uh-huh.
advice.
Yes. Yes.
But there's some really cool resources online through the IRS specifically that really spells out what is an independent contractor and what is an employee. The main things that you want to consider is one, how much autonomy or control does that individual have? And that could be around setting their work hours, selecting their output, what equipment are they providing. It's really around autonomy of the individual, right? So if you tell someone, I need you to work on these days from these times using my equipment, following my rules and regulations and policies that you have, that's an employee.
That is W-2.
That is a W-2 employee.
W-2 employee.
And then if it's more so like, hey, I have a project that I just need your mana'o for, I want you to consult with me or help give me, help me with a short-term thing. They're using their own equipment. It's the opposite of what I just shared. That's an independent contractor. And the reason why you walk a very tight line, that's important, and I'm glad you asked that question, is you could also be penalized if you hire someone as a 1099 and they're entitled to be a W-2 employee. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, someone claimed unemployment.
Yes.
Yes.
Not from my
That's-
Correct, yeah.
Yep, that's how
That
you
is
get
how you
caught.
get caught.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 They made it
And then you
really
open a whole can of worms because then there's insurance that had to be provided, work comp, TDI, all of
And
that
then you have to pay all of that.
back
to that
on top of
point.
penalties.
Yeah, that employee was working with you.
Like if they fit the qualifications to have been
Mhm.
a W-2 employee and you didn't extend that as a invitation.
Yeah, so I just attended the Hawaii Labor Law Seminar.
Oh, yeah, please.
And one of the things that they were saying is, one, DOL is going after these companies like they've never seen before. So basically, if you have an independent contractor, they need to have a legit business on the side. Like, so they have to have an LLC, they have to have something to show, and because before they had this, they have an ABC rule.
Yeah.
But the ABC rule still is black and white, I feel, when people read it. And when people read things like that, they're like, oh, I could get away with that. I could get away with this. But really, like, in my meeting, they're like, just if 90% of the time when you have somebody working for your company, it's gonna not be an independent contractor. And you just don't want to take that chance because it's gonna fall back on your company. And you don't want that to happen because if they find that in your company, they're gonna go after every penny they did not get. And that's on you, and so just don't. If you're gonna have a 1099 employee, make sure that it's you're gonna subcontract a company.
If it
You're
feels
not gonna-
risky, it most likely
Yes, yes. So I say cleaning companies are one of the ones that they 1099 their employees a lot. construction companies, I don't know why they think that they can 1099 or subcontract a employee that doesn't have their own contracting license, those type of things. But those are like the two biggest ones I can think of.
And I have seen a lot more of that, people getting caught doing that
Yeah.
too. So we have two more questions.
It
Oh.
depends.
It
We all
depends.
kind of do separate,
Yeah. We're not really going to answer that specifically today, but you can ask them later, like what your needs are, because your needs are going to be very different than most of the other people here, especially because it's ag too. Yeah. So Adam has a question.
Yeah, so I get and repeat it back in the mic, I'm sure there's someone on here that's doing this, the paying someone under the table thing. And I try to tell them, till my face is blue, you're losing so much money in tax deductions for it. Are there options that you guys have that makes it easier on the employee, that now you can kind of sell the employee, like, hey, this is how it benefits you? Because to them, they're like, I'm losing money on tax, I want to be paid under the table, and then the owner is losing out on that. So what advice do you guys have on that?
So the question is how to avoid, for people that want to get paid under the table because they're saying, I don't want to have to pay my taxes on my income, but then the employer loses the tax benefit of having an employee. And how do you avoid that? In case it's not coming up on the mic, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, Adam, what I'm kind of hearing from you is like, if you're sitting in the owner's seat, like, how do you sell to the employee? Like, hey, I've been giving you cash for the last 2 years, but like, we need to right size this ship. I know, like, I'm sure we all got the calls, after the Maui wildfires, when the organizations that were paying their helpers cash, that then all went to the unemployment department. That's how a lot of that came up of kind of the classification. So, those of us who are W-2s of companies, like, we're paying into Social Security, we're paying into Medicare, our employers are paying into unemployment, and that provides that social safety net for us all. If we get hurt while we're at work, we have workers' comp. So it is expensive, right? Like, it's going to come out of your paycheck, and that's part of it. Also, health insurance, right? If they're working over 20 hours a week for 4 weeks in a row, having that health insurance benefit. So it is a conversation. Also, if they are running a legitimate business and they shouldn't be a W-2, well then, that person who they're paying needs to probably go get a business license and liability insurance and all of the other things. So it's like looking at both sides of the coin and kind of sharing with them all the benefits that there are of being a W-2 employee.
And on top of that, say your employee needs to get a loan. If they're getting paid cash, they're not going to be able to do
That's
that.
a
Say
good point.
if they want to better their lives, they want to buy a car, they are going to buy a home. They need this information for them to be able to qualify for those things, and that benefits them. But all in all, when a company is like, I need to go as a W-2 employee, like, that's their decision. If the employee doesn't want to be a part of that, then you don't want that employee in your company. If they want you to make that choice of like putting their business at risk, you don't want that employee on your payroll. I mean, that's what I would advise any of my clients.
That's a really good point too, because what if they get hurt on the job and you don't have workman's comp?
Exactly. And
they'll
I think
sue
I was just
you.
about to make the same point. Like, you're actually benefiting that employee, like, if they want to be able to better their lives, right? Like, if you want to purchase a house, you're not going to be able to do that if you have cash under the table and cash going in your bank accounts. But one other thing I'll talk, and I think Adam can also like attest to this, and I would want to not go down a rabbit hole, is but also from employers, like, as you grow and scale, there are also tax credits that you can receive, right? Like, so for those coming out of the pandemic, there was the ERC program, Employee Retention Tax Credit, that was given. There's also tax credits that are given if you're hiring, I believe it's veteran workers, right? Those that are looking to get back into the workforce or transitioning out of the armed forces. So also some, like, the taxes can oftentimes be a scary thing, but at the end of the day, it actually is beneficial for both the employer and the employee. And I think it's really, to her point, like, it's a conversation you as a business owner have to make. And I would say don't hold yourself hostage to what your one employee or two employees who are in contract or under the table status dictate the growth of your business.
So we're kind of in this third question, which is under compliance and risk. HR and employment laws can be complicated, especially for new business owners. What are the top 3 common pitfalls, and maybe we've already talked about this, but that your agency has experienced for new employers, and how do your agencies help companies stay compliant and avoid costly mistakes? So we've already talked about some of the mistakes, but maybe there's more to it. I don't know who started. Sorry.
We've kind of discussed all of the pitfalls of what could happen if you don't utilize a service like us. And I mean, again, I've shared some stories that I've had, with clients coming to us, and it's just really important that maybe this is more a belief too. Like, if you give what you want to receive back, that's going to be the same thing like you're doing for your business, right? You want to do good and you want to do right, because if you do good and right, it's going to come back to you and you're going to get more business. And it's kind of something that I tell my clients all the time, because I get those phone calls of like, I don't have the money this week. Can I just pay them cash? I said, it's not benefiting you at the end of the year, and it's not going to benefit them. And if you do that once, they're going to want it more because they're getting more in their pocket. But again, it's hurting your pocket by when you file your taxes, it's going to mess up a lot of things. And most of the time they understand, but sometimes having somebody like us up here to hold their hand and tell them these things, they don't think of those things. So it benefits any company to utilize a service like ours, because it just benefits your company in the long run. Yes, you're going to have to pay a little bit more for our services, but it's worth it. It really is. I honestly can tell you, I've been in the business for 17 years, and I see the companies like, like, we're a really small company. So like, it's, we work with I personally work with all of the clients on my own, whether it's through all of their struggles. So I kind of know when they're not doing something right, and then we're close with their employees. So their employees will come in and they'll disclose something to us, and we're like, I didn't hear that, but more of the time I see our companies thriving when they're doing everything right. The ones that are doing under the table things that we find out, I'm not gonna, it's not my business. It's not my business if they're gonna do those. I can advise them and ask them or tell them what they could face by doing those things. But if they're gonna continue to do that, I see that their business is not growing. So it's important to just make sure you're doing the things right that we can help you with.
So when people become your client, then you can share advice and legal. Yes, got it. So that's part of the service that you're paying for.
I understand you guys are doing HR work, and some of you are in small businesses and some of you are in big businesses, my understanding. So you're either acting as the HR people for a business, or you're providing the services as an HR person, for an HR person. And then
The question is like, yes, sir. Yeah, so maybe we can just go down the line real quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
At ADP, we have a couple of different options. So you can pick from a menu. We can just do the payroll and tax filings for you if you want. That's all you need. If you're the only one on payroll, hopefully you don't have a lot of HR problems with yourself. So you don't need to pay for it. If you're looking for all the way, where we have skin in the game, and we're going to advise you and co-employ with you, we can do that as well.
So very similarly, we can do just the payroll side, but then there's a whole wide suite of services where we can help you do training. We can help you write your employee handbooks. We can consult with you if you got employee issues. I mean, the list really is kind of endless. So we like to say, like, we are your HR partner and an extension of your HR person or function, depending on the size of your business. I think to answer your question earlier, like, the biggest pitfalls that I think I see a lot of businesses struggle with, and oftentimes I like to say get in trouble with sometimes, is going to be wage and hour law. So sometimes not paying people correctly, or following those rules and guidelines. The second is going to be misclassification of workers, which is the 1089 versus W-2. And then a lot of times it could also be wrongful termination. You see that a lot, right? Like if you guys look on the news, it's going to be, hey, employees now being back paid $600,000 because they were wrongfully terminated for whatever reason, or hey, they were, owner was taking their tips and they were supposed to be paid that, right? So those are like the three main buckets, at least that I see in terms of compliance issues.
We just got finished going to a nonprofit class.
Mhm.
Do you also help nonprofits with
We do.
their, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah, of course.
stuff.
Yeah, and then to piggyback on like what we do staffing. So we do staffing, HR, and payroll services, but it's a PEO service, so we don't do like, you have to actually file, it's under our EIN and DOL number, and then we pay your employees that way, so that you can piggyback us under, back your employees under our policies. We do that because the bigger the company, it can be cheaper opposed to you guys going out on your own and getting your own policies. So it just depends on what the company needs. Like we do different things.
So then
I-
they would become your employee, not my employee.
The DOL, and they still look at it as a shared employer
Mm.
because we take care of all of the back office things, but you still manage. So say your employee goes to Department of Labor to say, I'm, being whatever, I have an issue with my client. If it has to do with the management side, then they're gonna come to you and of course, we're gonna help you with, talking to them and following whatever they need. We actually file that all for you, but that's still gonna fall on you because you're managing that employee. We don't tell the employee how to do their job, what their job is, or anything to do with the job side. As far as the payroll side, we get all of that information from you as the company, and we're only paying the employee what you're telling us to do. So it's a little bit different opposed to if you wanted, like what ADP does, they use your own insurance. You can use, I guess you can do both, but you can actually get your own insurance and workers' comp, and they'll pay all of that for you. But then they won't have the HR side.
Katie has a question.
If you were to hire seasonal or occasional help for your company, should we be factoring in, like if we were planning to pay like $20 to $25 an hour, should we factor in that will actually if we're having, not through us, but through you, that double kind of that?
I
Can you
wouldn't
repeat the
say
question again real
double.
quick?
Yeah. So the question is, if you're going to hire seasonal workers, how much should you expect that cost burden to be, the actual cost of having those employees? I wouldn't say it's going to be double the wage. One of the biggest factors is going to be what they're doing. So if you're hiring seasonal people to come in and check people in at a hotel, it's a very low risk job. They're probably not going to get hurt doing that. The workers' comp part of that total expense is going to be very low. Whereas if, it's at a pumpkin patch and they're picking up heavy pumpkins, sewing,
Machine.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's all gonna depend, and I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go into it, because if you're only gonna have seasonal employees for 2 weeks, they're not gonna be eligible for healthcare, so that cuts your healthcare costs, right? So a lot of the itemized things that Stephen was speaking to earlier, it's really on a, it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Sounds like a good way to like ease into having employees.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge commitment. If you're gonna hire somebody, you
Mhm.
don't even know this person.
Yes.
Now you've got this huge.
And ultimately, like, look, like, I mean, I've worked in retail like my whole life, as like side jobs and stuff. And there are companies who only let their employees work 18 hours a week to
I
keep
know.
under the threshold to not have to provide healthcare, right? So yeah, so there's a lot of, all the line items that Stephen was speaking to earlier are really just dependent on a lot of different factors that get taken into consideration. But partnering with one of our organizations will help you be able to understand which levers get pulled and how that determines cost. So it's not a one size fits all answer.
Are you folks, any of you do like temporary hires, like employee leasing? Or I don't know what that's, maybe I'm using the wrong. temporary hires.
Employee leasing actually is the old saying for a PEO term. But yeah, so temporary to permanent staffing is what we do along with direct hires. So if a company doesn't want to run their payroll through us, then they can do a direct hire. So yeah, we can do all of that. If you just want to kind of get a ballpark on it, I mean, reaching out to us, we basically can give you a full breakdown of what the cost will be. I have, when we do it, we have like our office, because we do staffing, we break everything down within, the day. So you'll get a quote for the cost, and it's broken down by an hourly wage. So you'll know, you can say, okay, well, I want to work this person for 19 hours a week. And then you take that bill rate that we give you times that 19 hour, and that's going to be your actual cost. Our PEO site is similar, but it's at a lower cost because staffing is temporary. So there's a finder's fee on it. Leasing is long-term, so it's at a lower cost. So
Good. Okay.
Okay, I
Did you
think
get to
we
answer your
were
question?
back in the top 3 pitfalls.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm loving everything that you're adding. So
Me
top
too.
3 pitfalls on the HR side. First one, misclassification of employees 1099s versus W-2s. The only thing I'll add here is it's not actually the employer's determination. Like, oh, I want this person to be a 1099 because I only pay them $200. If you have questions about that, I always recommend like reach out to the Department of Labor at the state of Hawaii. Reach out to the IRS. The IRS has that form that Tyler mentioned. You fill it out, you send it to them. If they say you have a 1099 or a W-2, at least then you have some documentation in place. I just want to add in there, it's less of your opinion and more of an actual determination from the agencies. The next one, missed filings. So Tyler's driving it home with the penalties, but we see it all the time, right? Like someone will call us in December and they're like, "Hey, what do I do? I've been paying this person all year," and so they actually need to go back and do filings for if they have an employee in Hawaii, they have 3 different agencies that they have to do tax filings for. And if they didn't send any of the money to the state or to the IRS, they also needed to be sending that money. So that's part of the service that we do, but missed filings. And the last one is missing that health insurance piece. So just understanding the local laws. The Hawaii prepaid healthcare is extremely unique in its characteristics to Hawaii, that making sure that you have that covered if you have somebody working over 20 hours a week for 4 weeks in a row.
So,
Can you
so
repeat
that
the
also
question?
becomes a sticky one because, so
The question is, how about self-employment? And
yeah, so you're talking about health insurance with self-employment. So that becomes sticky because you have Hawaii Prepaid Healthcare Act, which is at the state level, and then you have the Affordable Care Act at the federal level, right? So Hawaii Prepaid is basically based off of, again, there are nuances depending on the industry that you're in. There are some industries that are exempt from it. The number of employees that you have, but basically the state law is when you have an employee that works at least 20 hours a week for 4 consecutive weeks, you have to provide them healthcare coverage. And then it gets even more complex in terms of how much that employee has to pay or can pay for their coverage and what you as the employer have to be able to cover. So for self-employment, like I usually generally, and again, like this is not legal advice by any means, consult with a professional, but like usually you would have to get your own insurance through the marketplace as a self-employed individual because you still need that coverage under the ACA. Yeah.
They can write it off on the taxes. Make sure you write it off.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, that's good to know.
Thank you.
There's an HC5 form that also has a list of reasons why you would not, that person would decline coverage. Most of them are because they already have health insurance through somebody else. But the general theme is Hawaii wants everybody to be on somebody's plan.
Yes, good answers.
I've had issues in the past where employees, I would give them these hours to work when I had employees, and they would be like, "Oh, but I can't work those hours, can't work these hours," and it was like it wound up being way less than 20 hours a week because they just couldn't make it for
Yeah.
this and that and that. Do you still have to provide health coverage
No.
if they are the ones that are not?
No.
You can take, yeah.
accepting the hours?
Yeah,
that
they
you're
would
offering?
no longer be eligible to receive coverage under those stipulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about salary? So if you're paying someone salary,
That is another pitfall. That falls
Yeah.
under the wage and hour pitfall that I talked about earlier, like misclassifying someone as exempt versus not exempt from overtime. Very similarly to 1099 versus
That's a big
W-2,
one.
There is a whole other test within itself to
Yeah.
determine whether someone should be exempt or not exempt, and those tests can apply in a lot of different ways depending on role, industry, as well as how much you're paying the individual. So definitely check with the State Department of Labor for the specific, they call them FLSA tests, Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA test. You can Google it and then it will help you walk through that whole thing, yeah.
Are you able to be an LLC, single member LLC and be on payroll for yourself?
So
Because
the que-
I've been
can you
for
repeat that
about 2
question?
years, and I was just told by a new tax person that I can't do that.
Get a different tax person.
Go see Adam.
In fact, if you're paying tax as an S corp, you have to be on.
Right.
But
So
that's
I
a-
have until like right now, right, to figure out if I need to go back and become an S corp for the year.
You can,
No,
you can be a
75 days
LLC
from,
and
the
file as
beginning.
an S corp.
So.
Can you
from
answer that on the
January
mic?
1st, you
Yep.
have 75 days to file, and to file, you're screwed.
So we have a very specific question about if you're a single LLC, if you can take a payroll. Stephen's going to answer that.
So if you're an LLC and you're taxed as an S corp, the S corp requires that the owner be on payroll if they're doing substantial work for the company. If you're not taxed as an S corp,
Go see Adam.
then talk to Adam about it. But I don't
But this
think
is
s-
why
I
we're
don't
saying
think so.
too, right? Like
You
you
don't
need
have to be
professional.
on payroll, but you can be on.
Adam says you don't have to be on payroll, but you can be on payroll.
And Adam is a CPA, so not necessarily on this panel, but it is
Come grab a
again,
seat, Adam.
Talk to me after next
what
week.
was my disclaimer? None of this should be considered legal, HR, or tax advice. Everything is very specific, but you know, this is the kind of stuff that people need to talk about. It is a real deal. And even when we were talking about doing a panel about finances, you know, your accountant might set up your books in such a way to help you get the most money out of your young growing business, especially at the beginning. But then when you need to apply for a loan, you probably should have had this categorized differently, because now your paperwork doesn't look like it should if you need, or to, you know, it's just like there's so many things to consider that it would be really helpful to look at everything. So that's why we're doing all this. It's all very, very helpful. I'm going to get, because we're on our time schedule, we're going to ask people to wrap it up, and then if we can, just because the last question's important, and I love that we've been asking questions all throughout this. I think that's super helpful. But I just want to ask the last question, which is, what is the best practice and one essential piece of advice for entrepreneurs onboarding their first employee or contractor to set up for long-term success and retention? And hopefully we'll have time for questions again.
All right, so I'm going to answer this question from the perspective of getting your frame of reference and putting yourself in the shoes of that employee that you're bringing on board. So certainly recommend having a 30, 60, 90-day plan for that employee, but really just thinking in totality about the onboarding experience, about the application process that you bring that person through, around how seriously you take those interviews, because how seriously you take bringing them on board and what that is in their career is how seriously then they're going to take the job. So that's where I'm going to take the question from an employee perspective. And then from your all perspective, I'm going to go back to the start, which is thinking about elevating yourself to your highest and best use task. David said it best at lunch, that if you have a job and you're having to do everything, you've really just built a job for yourself. So thinking about your full system and what can you build a team around you to support you with.
For me, my piece of advice is, like, as you're building your company, like, really take a moment to identify and set the pillars of what your company culture is going to be, because that's important in today's like that's what job seekers are looking for. So that could be understanding like really what is the purpose of your business and what is the passion that made you start that business? Do you have values that you stand very firmly on and make your hiring decisions based off of your culture and your values? Onboard your employees so that they understand their alignment to those culture and those values, and continuously assess your employees based on their alignment to your culture and your values, right? Because you could get somebody who's going to be aligned for the first maybe year or two, and then maybe all of a sudden they're no longer a culture fit. They're not aligned with your values, right? And that's going to cause some disruption in your productivity. And especially as you continue to scale, it's going to cause disruption with the rest of your team as well, right? It is, I like to say, like a workplace as a family, and not every family is perfect, but having those shared rooted values and beliefs go a very, very long way. And we've seen that with some of the most successful businesses in Hawaii. So that's my 2 cents.
I was going to say, I heard that from David Yamashiro as
Mhm.
well
Yeah.
today about being solid.
Everything that they said is absolutes, I feel. But one of the things that I think is really important is once you get that employee, making them feel needed, wanted, and appreciated is going to take that employee doing what they need for you and your business a long way. Because if they're there and they just feel like they're day to day just doing a job that they don't really want and care, but they're doing it for the money, they're not going to put out what you need for them. And then you're going to start feeling it. Your customers are going to start feeling it. Your business is going to start feeling it. It's really important to treat your employees right. Make them feel that they are doing something that really is important to you and them. And because I get a lot of that, because we talk to the employees a lot. And it's great that I get to talk to the employees because I can fix those things. Like I have an employer who keeps turning in his employee's payroll late. So if he's late, I can't get his direct deposit. He's got to come into our office to pick up his paycheck. That's really annoying to his employee. But his employee said, I show up to work every day. I do the work that he needs, and he can't even turn in my, payroll in time. And I have to leave work and come here. And so, I'm happy that I can actually call that client and just let him know, like, your employee is really upset that you're not turning in payroll on time. He actually said, he might have to look for another job because he feels unappreciated. So, I mean, it just goes a long ways. Like, just know that, everybody who works for you don't ever make them feel like, they're just there because you need them there. They're people too. That's my 2 cents in advice.
I love it. Okay. Did you still have a question?
Yeah, really quick. Does a volunteer board of directors get paid?
No.
Are you talking about a nonprofit?
Nonprofit.
I think they said
Yeah, no,
No.
It's
nonprofit.
a volunteer role.
I've never got paid.
No.
The executive board of directors, isn't the executive whoever created it somehow get?
It depends on
Oh,
the
yeah.
charter of the board itself. If they stipulate that an executive director gets paid a small salary, then yes, but it's all based off of the charter, to my understanding at
They're
least.
governing document.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you guys
Michelle.
have business cards?
Yes.
Yes.
Come on up after. Come on up after.
Yes, good question. Any other questions? We will save some time so we can chit chat during the break because I bet you have some very specific questions you might want to ask.
Question, a comment, and it's just really important, guys. Like, if you have employees, you're gonna hit on a situation like once every 20 years. And there's only one right answer for how you address that situation. If you get it wrong, you're gonna get sued, or you're gonna get in trouble, or you're gonna be fined.
Mhm.
So you're like gambling if you're not using one. So please contact them, use one of these guys, or else you're just gonna get in trouble.
I do think that's
Sexual harassment claims, not against me, but sexual harassment claims that we've had to navigate through, terminating people because of cause, terminating people because the position doesn't exist anymore. Certified payroll, you have union payroll.
Mhm.
There is so many things things that you can mess up when it comes to HR, why wouldn't you just pay them the 50 dang bucks? Okay?
It is, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons that this is such a high demand request from entrepreneurs, because I think even if we don't know what we don't know, we know that it's a lot, and we know that it's complex, and we know that it's there's many pitfalls and penalties, and sometimes it's the fear of penalties more than that anything else that gets us to motivated to pay for it. But yeah,
I think Jen hit on it the best with time.
yes,
I mean,
time is important.
your manifestation of your passion in your business is in the beginning, until you have systems in place. In the beginning, it's completely reliant on your shoulders and your time.
Yes.
I guarantee if your business has the ability to grow, that time that you'd be spending trying to figure out how to do something that you have no clue how to do, you will make you'll 5x, 10x that money focusing it on yourself and your business and paying someone else to handle that stuff. I say the same thing for Adam as well. I mean, these things are.
Kind of got to work
It's
smarter,
better
not harder. So I just want to really thank Jennifer, Stephen, Tyler for being here today, spending your time with us and sharing your mana'o. And I'll invite everybody to come up after.
Thank you, that was great. Good question. I've worked for places that you did my money.
Great job, guys. Sorry I talked too much. So.
Taking the tax questions.
Appreciate it.
I'm on Lanai.
Okay.